Say it with me though. Say it with me though. Sup though. Right.
Be careful when you're passing through Iowa through the use of Highway I-74, especially when traveling at night. It was only a few years ago that I'd been driving along that very road with a friend of mine, and little did I know she was about to fall victim to someone who had been preying on women along that road for years.
Jeez.
You see, Andre and I have been driving back from a wedding.
Battery low.
Thank God I got my charger right here. Hold on.
Preying on women along that road for years. You see, Andre and I have been driving back from a wedding for one of our friends. We had spent a few days in the town where the ceremony was held, and it was finally time to head home. It was about a 14-hour drive from our apartment, so we left the hotel at around 8 in the morning, but due to traffic and multiple bathroom stops, we were still driving well into the evening. It was around 11 p.m. We were driving along I-74, and at this point, we were only about an hour and a half from our destination. As we were driving along, we noticed a car parked alongside the road, and my first thought was what everyone else's would have been. It's a cop. So I made sure I was going the speed limit and passed thinking that nothing was wrong. Sure enough though, the car pulled out and the red and blue lights began to flash. So I complied with the stop, and right away I noticed that it's an unmarked car. That should have been my first red flag. The officer came up to the window and went through the basics. Do you know why I pulled you over? And whatnot. But before I could even give the officer my license, he began to open my car door. He claimed to smell marijuana in the car, which I knew was crazy because it was a rental. This, of course.
All right. What's going? Hey, man. You know what I would have done in that situation? I most likely would have looked out the window, like this the window right here. I would have looked at his shoes. Sus! And then drove the hell off.
Led him to search us, which I had no problem with, but I noticed that he was being more handsy with Andrea than he had been with me. But I didn't say anything. I figured me and her could talk about it in the car and possibly notify the office. But that was when the situation went from bad to worse. The officer claimed to have found a small bag of what he said was methamphetamines on Andrea. She was immediately in tears, saying that it wasn't hers, but he wouldn't listen to either of us. He put Andrea into handcuffs and told me that I can contact the station about her situation after she was booked.
So that whole road is a setup. Let me know if anybody's from Ohio, ever been to Ohio, or more specifically, driven on that road a few times. Is that just like a cluck road to get, you know what I mean, to get people like, hell nah, I'm not with that. I already don't like the cops, bruh. I got a story to tell y'all. Hold on.
I knew it wasn't hers because Andrea was 100% straight edge person. No drugs or alcohol. She said it made her feel too weird. But what were we supposed to do? It was a cop. So I finished the 2-hour drive home by myself and tried to wrap my mind around the situation. Something didn't sit right with me, and I wish I had been smart enough to call the police station sooner than I did. But after someone online told me that undercover officers aren't supposed to act that way that officer did, I decided to call the station. And it was at that moment that my worst nightmare had been realized. The person who answered my call let me know that Andrea had never been brought in, and then once he asked around, he discovered that they had no undercovers in that area that night.
See?
A missing person report went out, and just under 2 weeks later, authorities found Andrea's body. She had been found laying face down in a ditch along I-74. She was the first of 8 women who went missing in that area under similar circumstances. Of those 8 women, only 4 of their bodies had been found. All had severe bruising and were killed with single gunshot wounds to the back of the head.
Well, I looked at that and still jumped. That shit crazy.
I don't drive much.
God
since the
damn. I mean, that's what my car looked like, kind of. I'm not even gonna hold you. Jesus.
But when I do, I make sure not to go anywhere near a 3-lane highway. It was September of 2004.
Speaking about driving, anybody that drives, right? Or that, you know, be in a car, or just be on a road, not necessarily driving. I know I'm not the only one that thinks this, but let me know if you think this. You ever think about when you driving on the road, especially like them big ass lane highways, that joint got like 4, 5, 6 lanes in it? What if somebody decided to, like, God forbid this happens, but I think about this pretty often, but like, what if somebody decided, you know, they just wanted to, like, just say cluck it and just end their life and just they're on the far left lane or the far right lane, and they either, depending on what lane they like, say they're on the left lane, the far left lane, you know, they'd be like, cluck it, and then make an immediate turn to the right and just cluck up like 6, 7, 10 cars. Cluck up everybody in that shit. I be thinking about shit like that, but like, it'd be a lot worse if somebody was driving an 18-wheeler and decided to make like, that's a lot of cars on the road. Like, somebody could be having a bad day and just something, you know, like something that happens to them, or like somebody cut that person off, or somebody goes to the next lane but without like a turning signal, and you cut that person off, it's wraps for everybody. 15 cars on impact. Sometimes I'd be scared to drive.
And I had been driving in the middle lane with my family. I was driving, my wife was sitting beside me, and our 2 daughters were in their car seats in the back.
Jesus.
They had been having a fun trip by playing a game that they called Caravan, which was basically just them paying attention to traffic and seeing how long we stick near the same cars. The only car that had been with us for more than 5 minutes of the drive was this red van that was behind us. Something I normally wouldn't care to remember, but after what happened, it's something I will never forget. You see, out of nowhere, my entire life changed. Something happened to our car, and it began to make a popping noise for about 2 seconds, and then just stopped running. I have never seen this happen. It was like everything in the car seized up. We were in the middle of a highway with lanes on both sides of us, literally nowhere to go. Even if we had somewhere, there was no time to react. Remember the red van? I sure do. They mustn't have had time to react because they slammed right into our car, going at least 50 miles an hour. We were all shaken by the impact. And if that had been the end of the incident, overall we would have been fine. However, life doesn't always work like that. The impact from the van pushed our car forward and to the right, which meant half of it was in another lane that had traffic that was still moving within an inch.
The babies! Damn! I hope everybody's okay. Jesus.
Instant of the first impact, a pickup in the right lane slammed into the passenger side of the car. The impact from the truck sent our car into a roll, and my world went into slow motion. I looked back to check on our children, and I noticed that somehow my youngest daughter's seatbelt had come loose. As the car continued to roll, I saw as she was forced out the window, as she was thrown around the inside of the car. I would have screamed had I been able to, but all the wind had been knocked out of me. We finally stopped rolling, and all movement around us seemed to end. I looked to my wife, who was unconscious.
Oh my God. I've been in oh fuck. I think I've been in two or three accidents. I know two for sure. But a while ago, my coworker told me, excuse me, he said he was in an accident. In a car, it was him, somebody in passenger seat. Excuse me. And Jesus. Excuse me. And it's like two kids in the back, right? This is kind of like a blur, but I'm just trying to remember everything that he told me. Somebody hit him. I think he was driving. I'm not entirely sure. I know he was in a car though. But somebody hit them bad, and the car rolled over. He said he was able to grab one kid, but couldn't grab the other one. She didn't die, but like, I'm getting emotional because, like, think about how much of a impact that has on you. Fuck, I'm getting emotional. Oh my God. Oh. Oh God. I got emotional when he told me that because I could hear in his voice that he was in so much pain. And Slick still is. Because, like, think about it, like, you grabbed one kid, but you couldn't grab the other one because the momentum of the car rolling and shit. Can you imagine if that kid did not make it? Oh my God. To have somebody at the tip of your at your fingertips, but you couldn't grab that person. Oh my God. I know he is scarred for life. I would be.
Back to my older daughter, who was in tears. She had cuts all over her face and right arm.
Jesus.
First responders showed up and did everything they could for us. Sadly, there was nothing to be done for the most part. My youngest daughter was pronounced dead on the scene after being thrown out of the car. The rest of us made it to the hospital, but I was the only one to make it out. My oldest daughter fought the best she could, but due to internal bleeding, she passed away 2 hours after making it to the hospital.
God.
As for my wife, she was in a coma for just over 2 weeks. However, when she woke up and asked about her children, one of the nurses told her what happened. They said that her body was still too weak to take the shock, and the doctors told me that her heart stopped and she went into cardiac arrest. September 2004 was the month that I lost my entire world. Last summer was a trip. For the most part, I spent it hanging out with my friends, enjoying our last summer before all heading off to college. This meant that we were either going to the swimming holes or bonfires and having a blast. It also meant that we were being little punks a lot of the time, especially if you ran into us in the evening. We were always up to something wild and stupid. This one night, after having a small pool party, I was driving back home and I had my buddy Dan in the car. It was around 1 in the morning and the road was covered in fog, so we were driving slowly. We may have been stupid, but we always drive safe. As we made our way down the road, Dan pointed out something weird just off the side of the road. It looked like someone was dragging something into the woods next to the street. Dan,
That's none of your business. It's not. Just let it be. Let it be.
Convinced me to stop for a second.
Oh my God.
And try to get a better look. So I did. And then Dan cracked his window. Immediately, I asked him not to do it. I could tell something shady was going on. Dan didn't listen though. He loudly yelled, "What are you doing?"
Oh my God.
And he put on a deep, gravelly voice.
You clock ass.
So of course, we started cracking up. That was when the figure in the fog stood up straight and turned toward us. I felt chills roll down my spine as it slowly began to back up more and more away from the side of the road and deeper into the fog until it was out of sight. I turned to Dan to talk about what just happened, and we were both equally confused. Then Dan's eyes grew wide, and without saying anything, I could tell that something was behind me. As I turned around to look out my window, I nearly flew out of my seat. A man with a face covered in mud was pressed against the driver's side window of my car.
Oh my God.
I shouted and quickly threw the car into drive and floored it. I had never been so freaked out in my life. That was until Dan pointed out that he didn't think it was mud on his face. He thought it was dried blood. We got to my house and sprinted inside, even though there were no way that the man could have followed up. I wish it had ended there, but 2 days later, Dan and I were watching the news. Authorities found a body in the woods, not far from where we saw that man. It was the body of an elderly woman who had been bludgeoned to death.
Jesus.
I told my father about what happened, and he figured I should report what Dan and I had seen that night. So we called the police, and they asked us to come in to give a statement. I'm not sure if it did any good, as I tried to forget that night, which means I tend not to look into the status of that case at all.
Hey man, when are people gonna realize that more often than not, when you mind your own business, you're not gonna get clucked up, you know? Or you can probably do something about it from a safe distance, at least 6 miles out. At least. Any closer than that, you will get clucked up. That's a promise. But just mind your business. You know, you see like a, you know what I mean? You see like the elderly person on the side of the road. You know, she looked like she all cut up and whatnot. She wanted for her life. She out of breath. You know, barely ain't got any clothes on. Right? She looks hurt as hell, excruciating pain. Just mind your business. Just mind your business. You know, you hear, you know, your neighbor, you know, screaming at the top of their lungs because they in pain. You see blood splatter everywhere. Mind your business. Go back to sleep. What was you talking about? Yo, that road. Thank you for, what was that road again? It was in Ohio, right? That's what he said?
With a friend of mine, and little did I know, she was about to fall victim to someone. It was only a few years ago that I'd been driving along that very road with a friend of mine, use of Highway I-74.
Got it. Highway I-74. I don't know if I'm going to remember that, but whenever I'm in Ohio, I've never been to Ohio before a day in my life. But if I'm ever in Ohio, I'm going to come back to this video to let me know not to go on that road, because you got some cluckies out there. Just saying. You know. This joke right here with the bad accident, if you know for a fact that you are a bad driver, or people have told you multiple times that you're a bad driver, don't be driving or practice on an open road with no other cars around. Jesus. You know, get some cones or something, put them on the floor. Don't just be out here just driving, because I promise you will get clocked up. And even though you all right, so like, I'm a safe driver. You may be a safe driver, you know, a great driver. But the people around you got no business driving at all. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you. Stay happy. My family.